We are here with new story. Petula Clark's life has been full of incredible highs and difficult lows. Throughout her long career, she has experienced fame, success, and admiration, but also challenges that she kept hidden for years. At 92, she has finally decided to reveal the truth about her life, including the struggles she faced behind the scenes. Born as Sally Alwyn Clark on November 15, 1932, in Ewell, Surrey, her name wasn't even her own to begin with. Her father, Leslie, created Petula by combining the names of two of his ex-girlfriends, Pet and Ula. Her mother wasn't pleased, but the name stuck, setting the stage for a life that was anything but ordinary. As a child, Petula didn't have a stable home where she could grow up with the same friends. While her parents worked as nurses, she spent a lot of time in Wales with her grandparents in a small mining town. When World War II began, her family moved frequently to avoid the bombings. This constant upheaval shaped her personality, teaching her how to adapt to new environments. Without realizing it, she was developing the skills that would later help her become a performer. Her first public performance was almost too perfect to be real. At just 7 years old, she found herself in a crowded pub full of Welsh miners. The air was thick with smoke, and the noise was overwhelming, but the moment she began singing, the entire room fell silent. It was a small glimpse of what was to come. A major turning point in her life came in 1942 when she was 9. She and her father visited London's underground BBC theatre to record a message for her uncle, who was stationed in North Africa. The plan was simple, it was just meant to be a short radio broadcast. But in the middle of the session, air raid sirens began to blare, and explosions shook the city. As fear spread through the room, a producer needed a distraction. He asked if anyone wanted to perform, and Petula eagerly raised her hand. At first, she planned to imitate a famous comedian, but her father nudged her to sing instead. She stepped onto a box to reach the microphone and began singing Mighty Like a Rose. Her voice was clear and steady, cutting through the tension in the air. As she sang, the orchestra joined in, and for a few moments, the war outside seemed to disappear. That performance changed her life. When the broadcast aired, the BBC was overwhelmed with letters from listeners who wanted to hear more from the little girl with the angelic voice. She quickly became a regular on the radio, and over the next 3 years, she performed hundreds of times. By the age of 11, she was being called Britain's Shirley Temple. Her talent was undeniable, but it was the way she made people feel that set her apart. She could mimic famous singers, make audiences laugh one moment, and bring them to tears the next. Soldiers carried her photographs with them into battle. She wasn't just a singer to them, she was a reminder of home and everything they were fighting for. Her performances weren't just on grand stages. She sang in bomb shelters, hospitals, and military camps. By 12, she had performed over 500 shows for the troops. Then, in 1945, as the war in Europe ended, she took part in a massive celebration in Trafalgar Square. Thousands of people gathered, crying, cheering, and embracing one another. Right in the middle of it all, Petula Clark stood and sang, a fitting tribute from the girl who had lifted the nation's spirits during the war. Her rise to fame wasn't something she had planned, it happened by chance. When she was 12, she was performing for British troops at the Royal Albert Hall when director Maurice Elvey heard her sing. Impressed, he cast her in Medal for the General, 1944, despite the fact that she had never acted before. Just like that, she became Britain's version of Shirley Temple, a child star with a natural screen presence and a powerful voice. Over the next 5 years, she appeared in 17 films, including I Know Where I'm Going, 1945, directed by the legendary Michael Powell and Emeric Pressburger. Despite being only 13, she stood out even among experienced actors. By 16, she had already performed for Winston Churchill, King George VI, and Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery. People began calling her the singing sweetheart, a name that perfectly captured her growing stardom. But despite her success in films, music would ultimately define her career. In 1954, she recorded The Little Shoemaker, though at first, she was reluctant. She thought the song was too childish, but her manager convinced her otherwise. It turned out to be the right decision. It climbed to number 7 on the UK charts and stunned everyone when it reached number 1 in Australia. This made her the first British female artist to ever top the Australian charts, an unheard-of achievement at the time. What set her apart was her willingness to step outside her comfort zone. She recorded The Little Shoemaker in multiple languages: English, French, German, and Italian, a bold move in an era when most artists stuck to one language. This multilingual approach helped her reach international audiences, and by the end of 1954, she had performed in front of a record-breaking crowd of 124,000 people in Australia. Her ability to sing in different languages became a defining feature of her career. In 1957, she recorded her first French song, Prends mon cœur, without speaking a word of the language. She learned it phonetically, memorizing the sounds without understanding their meaning. Despite this, her performance was so convincing that the song became a top 10 hit in France. By 1962, she had mastered French well enough to win the prestigious Grand Prix du Disque for Chariot. Incredibly, she had simultaneous hit records in 3 languages that year: Chariot in French, Monsieur in German, and Romeo in English. No other artist had achieved such a feat. Unlike many singers who simply translated their songs, Petula recorded entirely new tracks for each market. She sang in Italian, Spanish, and even Japanese, treating each language as a unique artistic challenge. By the mid-1960s, her French hit Ya Ya Twist had sold over 1 million copies in France alone. Then, in 1964, Tony Hatch approached her with a song called Downtown. At first, she wasn't convinced. She thought the lyrics were too simple and didn't fit her style. But Hatch was determined. He believed in the song's potential. Eventually, she agreed to record it, but the session was plagued with problems. The electricity kept cutting out, causing frustrating delays. At one point, she nearly walked out, convinced the song was cursed. Despite the difficulties, they managed to finish recording just minutes before the studio closed. On November 16, 1964, Downtown was released in 4 countries simultaneously, an unusual move at the time. It debuted at number 87 on the Billboard Hot 100, but within a month, it skyrocketed to number 5. On January 23, 1965, it reached number 1, making Petula the first British female artist to top the US charts during the rock and roll era. The song became a global sensation, dominating charts in Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and West Germany. It even won a Grammy for Best Rock and Roll Recording, beating out competition from the Beatles and the Beach Boys. Between 1964 and 1968, she had 15 consecutive top 40 hits in the US, solidifying her status as an international superstar. Her career later expanded into Hollywood, Broadway, and West End productions, proving her versatility as an artist. But behind the fame was a lifetime of untold struggles, personal sacrifices, and hidden battles. At 92, Petula Clark is finally sharing the truths she kept to herself for decades, giving the world a deeper understanding of the price of stardom. Petula Clark's career has been nothing short of extraordinary. Even in her 80s, she showed no signs of slowing down. In 2017, at the age of 84, she released her 48th studio album, Living for Today. Her voice remained powerful, and the album featured a mix of original songs and covers, including an unexpected rendition of Steve Winwood's Higher Love. The album reached number 46 on the UK Albums Chart, making her one of the oldest artists ever to achieve a chart position. However, what followed left everyone in awe. Instead of taking a break, Clark embarked on a massive 53-date tour across the United States in 2018 at the age of 85. She performed in venues she hadn't visited since the 1960s and delivered full 90-minute sets without an intermission, something even much younger performers often find challenging. One of the most astonishing moments of the tour took place on February 23 at the B.B. King Blues Club in New York City. After finishing her scheduled set, instead of leaving the stage, she surprised everyone by staying for another 30 minutes. She joined the house band in an impromptu jam session that extended the concert past midnight, proving once again her deep love for music and performance. Clark's career was also marked by groundbreaking moments in television history. On March 2, 1968, while taping her NBC special, she performed on The Path of Glory with Harry Belafonte. During the performance, in a spontaneous and emotional moment, she placed her hand on Belafonte's forearm. It was a simple, natural gesture, lasting just 3.5 seconds, but it made history. At exactly 8:47 p.m., Clark became the first white woman to have physical contact with a black man on American television. The significance of this moment could not have been greater. Interracial marriage was still illegal in 17 states, and the civil rights movement was at a crucial turning point. Just weeks later, Martin Luther King Jr. would be assassinated. The gesture was completely unplanned, born out of the song's emotional message against war and the genuine connection between two artists. But despite its innocence, the reaction was swift and intense. Within 24 hours, NBC received over 3,000 calls and letters, some expressing outrage, others recognizing it as a long overdue step toward racial equality. However, one man in the room that night saw the moment as a disaster. Doyle Lott, an executive from Chrysler, which was sponsoring the show, was furious. He believed the moment would damage car sales, fearing backlash from Southern audiences. In response, he demanded that the scene be reshot without any physical contact. This demand exposed the deep-seated racism that still existed within corporate America at the time. Chrysler executives didn't care about artistic integrity or public opinion, they cared about profits. If airing that brief moment of interracial touch meant losing customers, they wanted it erased. But Clark refused. She had always fought for what she believed in, and she wasn't about to let a sponsor erase an important moment. Alongside her husband, Claude Wolfe, she made a bold decision. After 12 hours of intense negotiations with NBC and Chrysler, they destroyed every alternate take of the performance. 7 different versions of the duet, 37 minutes of footage, were erased forever using a magnet, ensuring that only one version remained, the one where she touched Belafonte's arm. This was a huge risk. At the time, Clark was one of the biggest stars in the United States, with 15 consecutive top 40 hits. She was making her first major push into American television, and defying a sponsor could have ended her career. But she stood firm, declaring, "The performance will be shown intact, or I will never work in American television again." On April 8, 1968, just 4 days after Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination, the special aired exactly as Clark had intended. Chrysler, despite all its efforts, had lost. That fleeting moment of human connection, lasting only 3.5 seconds, became a milestone in television history. Clark's encounters with history didn't stop there. One of the most unexpected moments of her life took place on June 1, 1969, when she stumbled into John Lennon and Yoko Ono's famous Bed-In for Peace at the Queen Elizabeth Hotel in Montreal. She had been visiting the city and had no idea she was about to be part of a historic musical moment. In room 1742, Lennon was recording what would become the anthem Give Peace a Chance. The atmosphere was chaotic yet electric, with poets, activists, and journalists packed into the room. Someone handed Clark a lyric sheet, and she joined in the recording. The setup was simple, just a few microphones and a tape recorder, but the song would go on to make history. Though Clark later admitted she couldn't hear her voice in the final mix, she had unknowingly contributed to Lennon's first solo single, which reached number 2 on the UK charts and made a lasting impact on the US charts as well. However, not all of Clark's experiences in Montreal were as uplifting. Just weeks before the recording, she had performed at Place des Arts, a venue she knew well. Normally, her shows were warmly received, but tensions in Quebec were at an all-time high. The province was experiencing deep cultural divisions between English and French speakers, exacerbated by violent attacks carried out by the Quebec Liberation Front. During her performance, Clark found herself caught in the middle. When she sang in French, the English-speaking audience members heckled her. When she switched to English, the French speakers did the same. It was a heartbreaking experience, something she had never faced before. Beyond her performances, Clark had other unexpected moments with famous figures. In the late 1960s, during a night off in Las Vegas, she and her friend Karen Carpenter decided to watch an Elvis Presley show. Presley was in the midst of his legendary comeback, captivating audiences like no one else. When he spotted Clark and Carpenter in the crowd, he made sure to acknowledge them. After the show, he invited them backstage. Clark later described him as drop-dead gorgeous that night, and it quickly became clear that he was romantically interested, but in both of them. For a brief moment, it felt like a scene from a Hollywood movie, with the king of rock and roll charming them both. However, Clark, always sharp and professional, sensed where the situation was heading. With quick thinking, she grabbed Carpenter, made a graceful exit, and later joked, "We had other things to do." Despite her charm and talent, Clark also faced controversy. In 1979, she sent a simple telegram congratulating Margaret Thatcher on becoming Britain's first female Prime Minister. To Clark, it was a historic moment worth acknowledging. But to many of her fans, it looked like a political endorsement. The backlash was immediate. Radio stations stopped playing her music, invitations to major events disappeared, and her album sales in the UK suffered. Clark insisted that she wasn't making a political statement, just recognizing an important milestone. But in the world of entertainment, even small gestures can have massive consequences. The controversy followed her for years, and it took time for her to rebuild her reputation in the British music industry. Throughout her career, Clark also experienced the difficulties of being a woman in the entertainment business. In the 1950s and 60s, she endured harassment, pay inequality, and being overlooked in favor of less talented male artists. For decades, she stayed silent about these struggles. But in a 2018 interview, she finally opened up. She recalled a chilling experience from 1965 when a powerful producer invited her to a hotel room for what she thought was a business meeting. Once inside, she realized he had other intentions. Clark managed to escape, but she knew that speaking out at the time could have ended her career. Her personal life was also shaped by her work. She married French publicist Claude Wolff in 1961, and they had 3 children. For decades, they were seen as one of the industry's strongest couples. However, in 2013, Clark revealed that they had not been in a traditional romantic relationship for years. Though they remained legally married, they led separate lives. Yet their partnership endured. Wolff continued managing her career until his passing in 2024 at the age of 93. Clark was devastated, calling her grief overwhelming. Petula Clark's life has been filled with triumphs, challenges, and groundbreaking moments. Even now, her story continues to inspire, proving that true artistry and resilience never fade. Thanks for watching.